Okay, before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to Brad Rock. A lot of years of great service in this state, and a real professional, and just appreciate the coverage he gave us and what he did for the state of Utah as far as his journalism and so forth, and great person. So Brad Rock, wish you all the best in retirement. Game week is finally here. We're ready to go. It's one thing about college football is you get so tired of beating on each other throughout all spring ball and all fall camp. It's not like the NFL where you get a bunch of preseason games and that type of thing to get ready. You got to work against each other. So our guys are definitely sick of doing that, as I'm sure everyone in the country is. And it's going to be nice to get out and actually play an opponent instead of lining up against ourselves every day. We've had a good fall camp. I think our guys are ready to go. We'll find out. Still got some question marks that will probably be resolved through the course of play. How the offensive line is going to come together, our kicking situation and so forth. So there's still some things that are unsettled as far as not knowing for certain, but that's the nature of the game. I mean, I'm sure everyone in the country's got those same issues as well. So anyways, we're excited to get going, and we're 3 days away, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days away, and we'll find out where we stand. Questions?
Coach, you had Zach, Tyler, Britton all have season-ending injuries last year, and they've all worked back from those injuries. How are they looking individually and collectively going into this opener?
Good. They'll be ready to roll. Yeah, they'll all be ready to roll, and we're looking forward to having them back. That's a lot of offensive production right there you just mentioned, and it's great to have them back.
Kyle, I realize it's not a Pac-12 game, but how big of a deal is the biggest sporting event in the state of Utah to Kyle Whittingham and the Utah Utes?
Well, the rivalry game is always a big deal in the state. You're right. I mean, it is most years. I guess there may be some exceptions. Most years it is the biggest event of the entire year. And, no conference implications, obviously, with the way things are set up now. But always bragging rights, and it has an impact on some of the in-state recruiting and that type of thing. So every game's a big deal, and the rivalry game coming in the opener is brand new. It's put a whole different spin on it, and so we'll see how it goes.
Kyle, is there anything you can learn from the week 0 games that maybe you can help kind of start off fast, or different tendencies that maybe you saw in those games to help you this Thursday?
Maybe just the fact that the team typically that makes the fewest mistakes is going to win, although Hawaii won turning the ball over 6 times. I mean, that's an anomaly. I mean, you look at statistical analysis, and that's in the 2% of the time category probably at best that you can get away with that. But even the Florida-Miami game was pretty laden with penalties and miscues, and so the team that in an opener you want to try to eliminate as much chaos as you can, and if you just play hard, it'll cover up the mistakes you do make. And so the opener is always a lot of unknowns no matter who you're playing, and you got to be ready for just a broad spectrum of possibilities because they've had all off season to change things up.
Coach, generally speaking, Utah's the underdog going into most games, and I know that's how you like it. This year's not the case. What's the message been throughout the off-season to the team to try and get them ready to be the favorite?
Well, trying to build on the success we had last year. We had a pretty good year last year, winning the Pac-12 South, and you got to be able to handle that success. And handling success is a lot different than trying to attain it. I mean, it's a different type of mindset, and you got to continue to work hard and not think you have all the answers, and be able to, just continue to do what got you there, and not get comfortable with what you've accomplished, because we got a lot more that we need to accomplish.
The one position battle that was unclear until the depth chart came out just now is Tariq Lewis at cornerback. Mm-hmm. How did he win that job? Just
slightly edged out Josh Nurse, and you'll see Josh Nurse in the game as well as Tariq, because it was that close. And another guy, Travis Broughton, is a guy that really is starting to come along, the freshman now. Whether or not he gets any game experience defensively, he'll get on special teams, but that remains to be seen. But that was a close battle. Tariq just played slightly better than Josh for more of the fall camp, but Josh where Josh Nurse is right now as opposed to where he was when we first made the transition to DB is night and day, and we're very proud of what he's done there.
Zach Wilson is a kind of guy, that really came on strong at the end of last year for them. What kind of progression do you expect to see from him?
Well, he was thrust in there as a true freshman, and I thought he handled it well. And like you said, his numbers got better as the season wore on. It's a new season. Everything is a fresh start for everybody. But you could definitely see him getting more comfortable in their scheme and certainly more productive as the season went on. And of course, he finished off with that statistically outstanding game in the bowl game.
Cal, I know depth charts don't necessarily mean much to you when you put them out in terms of sending it to us, but what's the running back situation look like? Obviously, I have Devonta Henry Cole as your number 2, but do you see Brumfield or Wilmore kind of getting in that action?
Absolutely, yeah. And, Zach is our lead guy. But as we talked about before, you run the football 40 times a game. He's not going to carry it 40 times, and so there's got to be some supplemental carries in there. And you will see Jordan Wilmore, you will see Devonta Henry Cole, and you will see Devin. And so we got 4 guys right now that are in the mix for carries, but Zach will get the lion's share of those carries.
Coach, you're used to riding momentum after a bowl win. That's not the case this year. Have you noticed a difference in this season or this offseason after not winning the bowl game and maybe having this as BYU as the opener help offset that maybe?
I don't think so. It was a downer, obviously, and it affects you for a certain period of time afterwards, but you got to get it out of your system. You can't dwell on that or linger on it. And it's something that, I haven't sensed any difference in the way our team is, their attitude, their preparation. So, yeah, I think it was a downer for a couple of weeks, and then after that you got to get over it and move on.
Coach, I was curious why you decided not to have players join us this year.
Well, the class conflicts for one, and giving them time to eat. I mean, there's just a lot of things. Plus, you'll have access to them later today, so there really is no disadvantage other than just not forcing them to drag themselves into here and disrupt their schedule.
One more question, just what's your level of, we've talked a lot about the kickers this year, the kicker and the punter, being new. What's your level of confidence as the season's getting started?
Well, very good right now, but as I always say with kickers, when the game situation is different than practice situation, and that's not only for kickers, for everybody, but as far as what we've seen in practice, we feel confident in both the punting and place kicking and the kickoff, because that's also a factor. And so we'll see, when they get their opportunity in the game. But if they can play like they practice, which oftentimes is the case, then they should be just fine.
Kyle, as a guy who has lifetime experience in this rivalry, do you still enjoy it all these years later?
Enjoy it. It's competitive. It's intense. When you're not in the same conference, it takes there's a different feel to it. But it's still every bit as gratifying, I guess you could say, as always.
Coach, going back to the kicking conversation, what yard line are you comfortable with when it comes to distance for Andrew on Thursday?
Well, he's got a strong leg. He's hit as far as 56 in practice, and so I think it's to say what yard line as a hard and fast rule is hard to do, because situation of the game. What effect will a missed kick have in that game, as opposed to what effect the three additional points will have? Because if you try, when you know as well as I, when you try long field goals, if you don't convert, you've given up some field position. So it's just more a matter of game complexion and circumstances rather than a hard and fast yard line. But where is he capable of? If we reach the 36, 37 yard line, that's where it starts to come into his realm of possibility.
Just to follow up on Zach Moss, when you say he's ready to roll, does that mean Thursday?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unless something happens between now and then, I guess could happen.
We've talked about it over the years, but just your relationship with Kalani, is it just as strong as it ever has been? And what remember some of your earliest memories of when you realized that this is my kind of guy?
Yeah, well, to answer your first part of the question, yeah, I feel very close to Kalani. We spent a lot of time in the off season again this year. we have a lot in common as far as how we think and personality-wise, at least in my estimation. And what was the second part?
When did you realize
Oh, when I interviewed him, Gary Anderson said, "Hey, here's a guy that, when Gary was obviously on the staff when I got the head job, got elevated to D coordinator. He said, here's a guy I want you to take a look at for a spot on the staff." Didn't necessarily say where, because Kalani had coached offense for most of his time, although he had a little bit of background on defense. And it was that very first interview when I sat down with him, and we spent a couple hours talking together and hit it off right away, and really, just enjoyed his personality and his attitude, and like I said, we had a lot of common ground.
Coach, the defensive line was able to generate a lot of pressure in last year's game, but they weren't able to convert a lot of those pressures into sacks. What's the focus this week heading into the game on Thursday with BYU for the defensive line in particular?
Well, just play their game. I mean, we've got very good players up front. Those three seniors in particular, and then Max Tupai and Mika Tafu are really good. The underclassmen, and so you don't want to press. You don't want to try to do too much. Just do your job. And last year we did get some pressures, but let them out of the cage several times, and weren't disciplined enough in our rush lanes. And so that's been a point of emphasis all fall camp long, is being more disciplined in our rush lanes. Now, that's not to say the QB's never going to, or that he's never going to escape, because he is. I mean, there's four pass rushers and 6 gaps, and so you're not going to cover all the gaps, every single rep, every single pass. But if you can just make him feel uncomfortable, don't let him just sit back there and have time to go through all his reads, snap after snap. That's really what gets you in trouble. We got to be able to disrupt him.
After going all through spring and fall camp, you probably have a good grasp of what the personality and the mentality of this team is. Mm-hmm. What are they like, and how is it maybe different than in years past?
Well, it's far more similar to last year than different. There's a lot more similarities. Leadership has been outstanding, the way they go about their business, and and I say that because we only lost 10 seniors or 9 or whatever it was. So most everybody's back. So there's not a lot of turnover. Where some years when you lose 20 plus seniors, you can see a dramatic change in the attitude and the personality. Not so this year. It's very similar to what it was last year, and which is a good thing, because I loved last year's group and feel the same about these guys.
Kyle, obviously you want the win, but what does success look like for you in the first week of games?
Success for us, to win. Yeah, to win would be the definition of it, without a doubt. And I don't know what else to say other than that's how we're measured, wins and losses, and so that would be the primary focus and criteria. It doesn't matter how it happens, ugly, pretty, none of that matters. It's just trying to get a win. Yeah, nothing wrong with your question. Or Tom's haircut, actually. Did you do that yourself? Looks good. Okay.
You touched on this briefly, all the returning experience that you have this year. In terms of the teams you've coached, has this been the most experienced squad you've had coming back?
I would say, yeah, just based on the outgoing seniors. Now, I don't want to minimize those guys that left, because they were really good football players, and I think every one of them, or close to every one of them, either got drafted or had a shot as a free agent. And so there was a great deal of talent there. But as far as just returning experience, probably this year and then the 08 year was kind of the same. We felt like we had a very good nucleus returning that year, and so probably comparable to what we had returning in 08 as far as the amount of starters and the quality of those starters.
Coach, in talking to the players, they use this 8-game winning streak as motivation, not wanting to be the team that ends it. How much of the is the streak brought up in when you talk to the team of we just don't lose to this team?
Well, we don't focus on the number of where whatever it is, and it's a situation where you're right. The responsibility they feel to the people that have come through the program, and we've had 5 senior classes come through that have never tasted defeat in this game, 4 or 5, and so you're exactly right. They don't want to be the group that breaks that streak, and nothing lasts forever, that's for certain. But they don't want to be the ones that are in that boat.
You had mentioned that this is the first time you play BYU, the first game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
How's that been different during the off season? I mean, you're not breaking huddles, and beat BYU or anything, but how's it been different?
No different. No different at all as far as our approach, how we handled spring ball, how we handled summer conditioning, how we handled fall camp. There really is no difference. We started preparing for the opponent at the exact same point in time through fall camp that we have in years past, and so the process is the process. It doesn't change, and we believe in it, and so there was no change at all as far as how that came about, or how it came down. One more, Dirk. This close to the Stairmaster, and Dirk's.
I got to work on my material.
Yeah. Okay.
Kyle, I was just going to ask, with the changes to the offense and that, do you anticipate Zach Moss and Britton Covey having maybe similar loads that they had last year, or not want to show your hand on that?
Well, they're both two really good players, and Zach Moss, we like to establish the run. That's never changed, and Zach is, one of the best backs in the country, in our opinion, and so he is certainly going to get, his share of touches. And Covey is our leading receiver, returning from last year, and so to answer your question, they'll be a big part of the offense, both those guys.